What's up, YouTube? So, Kalen Deboer and the Alabama Crimson Tide start the 2025 season just like they finished 2024 season with a loss. I came across an interesting article from the Bama Hammer written by John Mitchell where he talks about the fate of Kalen Deboer being tied to Greg Byrne, the AD. Hey guys, I'm Corey, and welcome to my channel, Let's Talk with Corey. If this is your first time tuning in, hit that subscribe button. But before we get started, wherever you are in the world today, I mean wherever you are in the world today, I really do hope you're having a great day. Guys, as you know it, my channel, Let's Talk with Corey, is about people, places, and things. And this time, we're not going to talk about the loss to Florida State, but it is somehow going to mean something down the road if Alabama continues to lose games under Kalen Deboer. But as I stated in the opener, I came across a very interesting article that I think that is important for those of you out there that are Alabama fans like me need to hear. So the title of this article says, Greg Byrne tied to Kalen Deboer's fate as Alabama faces a long road ahead. No doubt about it. Written by John Mitchell. For those who want Kalen Deboer fired already, it's not that simple. But the fate of Alabama AD Greg Byrne is directly tied to what happens next. Greg Byrne's fate and legacy as Alabama's athletic director was always going to be tied to who he hired to replace Nick Saban. Byrne knew that. Now, so did the powers that be at Alabama when he was hired away from Arizona in 2017. He's one of the top athletic directors in college sports, and he would be the guy tasked with replacing the legendary Tide football coach Nick Saban. Now, Byrne struck gold when he hired Nate Oates as a basketball coach in 2019, and Oates has brought an unparalleled amount of success to the hardwood, leading the program to the Final Four for the first time in 2024 and making it to the Elite Eight 2 years in a row. Now, that's something the program had only done once in history prior to his arrival. The goodwill produced from hiring Oates has already run out for Byrne because the only hire that truly mattered for him was a hire to replace Saban. And the early returns have been poor, if not quite the complete disaster that some say. Through 14 games of the post-Saban era, Alabama has gone just 9-5. Hit that subscribe button. Kalen Deboer has now lost to as many unranked teams through one season and one game as Saban did in 17 seasons at the helm. The standard is no more in Tuscaloosa. It's been ripped up and flushed down the toilet by a coaching staff that looks increasingly out of its depths at this school and in this conference. Hiring Deboer was always risky. He led Washington to a national championship game in 2023, but had only coached 46 games at the SBBS level when he arrived in Tuscaloosa. That's not a lot of games, guys. And only 28 at the P4 level. 4 total seasons as an FBS coaching, regardless of where those seasons came from, is not the level of experience that should earn you the head coaching job at a place like Alabama. And I'm going to insert this, and this is my opinion, and not for a buyout of $70 million. They overpaid this guy. That's not the article, that's me saying that. Unfortunately for Alabama fans, the road ahead will be a long one. Byrne has tied the Alabama ship and his legacy to Deboer, for better or worse, and it's looking worse by the week. Alabama simply doesn't have the money to fire Kalen Deboer anytime soon. It's easy to be emotional and scream from the rooftops that you want Deboer fired. I get it. I assure you, the thought ran through my head during yesterday's pitiful performance. But a rational look at the landscape of things will quickly tell you that getting rid of Deboer isn't that easy. In order to poach a top coach like Byrne believed he was doing when he pulled Deboer away from Washington, he had to give him a contract and a buyout in line with the best coaches in the game. Why? Why? Now that's me saying that, not the article. He's heavily overpaid. Now that's my opinion, not the article. For Deboer, that meant an 8-year, $87 million contract with a buyout of 90% of the remaining money owed if he's terminated without cause. Now, here's my crude math, not me. This is the article. Just assuming his yearly salary is just an average annual value of the contract is not. That is what Alabama would roughly owe year by year if they choose to let Deboer go. 2025, $58.7 million. 2026, $48.9 million. Now, these are what he would potentially be owed if let go in these years. In 2027, $39.1 million. In 2028, $29.4 million. Wow. Those numbers are crazy. Mind you, 46 games. 4 years at the FBS level gets you $87 million? Shouldn't have. That's me saying that, not the article. Those numbers tell me Deboer is getting at least 4 seasons at Alabama unless the team completely bottoms out. And that's not an impossibility. I'm saying that, not the article. The athletic department can't afford the first 2 numbers, probably can't even afford the third. This isn't A&M with Jimbo Fisher. Alabama doesn't have a multitude of big money donors who will be willing to throw that kind of money around to pay the buyout. What money Alabama does get from its richer donors is being funneled directly into the NIL to remain competitive with roster building. If Alabama diverted the money toward paying a buyout, it'd have a majorly adverse effect on the talent the Tide can accumulate. That's why, barring a 2000 Mike DeBoer's level bottoming out, Deboer will be Alabama's coach in 2026 and probably 2027 too. It's just the reality of this era of college football, until keeping him becomes more costly than the buyout. Deboer will be roaming the sidelines. Alabama's best hope could be that Deboer succumbs to the pressure of the job. That means the fans, that's just my opinion, guys, continue to just put the pressure on, decide to seek employment elsewhere, like Ray Perkins and Bill Curry did. I thought this was a really good article. And he just says, hey, these are the opinions of John Mitchell, who wrote this article, but it's not far-fetched. It's because you think back, even to not have a long plan of when he was going to retire, it kind of just happened, and then everything had to move rather quickly. Whose fault is that? I'm not going to get into that, but you guys can bring it up if you like. But if you really think back, if our coach, the GOAT, would have made the decision to say, hey, 2025 is going to be my last season, or 2024 is going to be my last season coaching the Crimson Tide, there'd have been a little bit more time to find the right person for the right fit for this job. But instead, you get the guy after the GOAT, who seems to have not a whole lot to say worth anyone's listening to. And here we are, new season, with an L already for the season opener, and it hasn't happened since 2001. It's a lot of years since Alabama lost the season opener. But I digress. This is about the AD being tied to Deboer and what it would take to get him out. And based off this article, Alabama can't afford to get rid of Deboer, even if he has a horrible season this year and one next year. Guys, you leave a comment. What's your thoughts about this article? Do you think that Deboer's going to turn this thing around? I think not. But there's always the optimism amongst those who've drank the Kool-Aid to think that this guy can be Nick Saban. It's not going to happen, in my opinion. But guys, as always, thanks for the pull-up. Until the next time, let's talk with Corey. Let's talk with Corey out.